Hello, I'm Shane Schultz, and this is the Arisen Strength Motivational Podcast. Folks, we do this show because we feel there are far too many dreams, talents, and capabilities that are being suppressed for whatever reason. Whether it be injury, illness, or life experiences, these are all situations that can have us be robbed of what it is that makes us special and unique in this world, and that's our passions. Here at Arisen Strength, we encourage people to pursue their passions in spite of the challenges they face. Now, how we do that is with our three-pillar concept. Number one, we support. Number two, we empower. And after all that work, number three, we have the right to celebrate. Folks, that's the Arisen Strength concept. Our goal is to help you be more than the challenges you face. I'm here with my good friend, Robert Reed of KillingTheStigma.com. Hey, Robert, how you doing today?
Not too bad, Shane. How you doing?
It is awesome to be with you. Let me tell you, folks, Robert and I are not in the same room. And I mean that. Like, he is like way far away. He's not even in the same state, same country. He's like in somewhere way out there called New Zealand. So what the heck are you doing here?
Oh, I just thought I'd pop in and have a wee chat to you and your followers. And, 16 hours ahead, mate. We've got to be able to do something with this future.
I got to tell you, the internet's a wonderful thing, right? So Robert Reed and I, we met each other in a support group in regards to mental health, one that's actually run by David Sussman, a good friend of mine as well. I've had the pleasure of being able to interview David a few times. And so with that being the case, we happened to be in the same group, and I noticed some of the content he was putting up. And I just said, listen, I just wanted to say hi, how's everything going? And let you know that I appreciate what it is that you do. And the reason why is because we're very similar. We are more like each other than we are different. That is for sure. With that being the case, we said, okay, well, let's set up a time in order to be able to chat. And next thing I know, for some damn reason, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm getting on my computer and turning on my camera, and all of a sudden we're talking less than an hour after we met. So it really kind of fit. It definitely made us be like brothers, especially when it comes to somebody who's challenging the mental health stigma that's out there. We're challenging the stigma in regards to suicide. We're also bringing out the message in regards to suicide prevention. So it is wonderful to have you here, my friend. I really appreciate you being here. And let's just have a good time and talk about a few things, all right?
Yeah, man. Sounds good. Thank you guys for having me too.
All right. So Robert's pretty screwed up. He's been screwed up for a while, and he's proud of it.
Weird and proud.
Yeah, right. Weird and proud. Okay. You and I, we deal with depression. We've dealt with it for a while, right? We've gone through a number of different things in our own history. We've also dealt with suicidality in a different way as well. So let's talk about challenges that you go through. Are you diagnosed with anything in particular?
Currently, I'm diagnosed with ADHD. I was diagnosed with that when I was about 9 years old. I have been diagnosed with postnatal depression, a minor anxiety disorder, and actually a weird one is a rare stress disorder, which they haven't actually put a name on yet. But basically, my body doesn't process stress the way it's supposed to. So it just builds up and then I shut down.
And for those of you who are wondering, it's not me. So let's just get that straight. All right. So postnatal depression? What are you talking about? Postnatal depression. You obviously weren't pregnant. So how can you have postnatal depression?
So the basics of it is that in early 2013, my son was born. Towards the end of the pregnancy, that obviously was not mine, my partner at the time's pregnancy, my own mood and my mental space had started to drop. At the time, I put it down to the stress of we're about to have a baby. Even after my boy was born, my mood never really came back up. That ended up continuing on right through to my son was born in March, and in October 2013, for a lot of what I still actually can't remember of the night, I ended up making an attempt on my own life. Luckily, I had a friend that happened to intervene, who took me up to the emergency psychiatric services here at the hospital. They sat me down in this room and spoke to me for about 45 minutes. And in that time, they ended up saying, well, you've got postnatal depression. And of course, I was like, I'm a male, that's not possible.
Right.
They then told me that males can get it. It is the way it kind of, I guess, displays itself is quite different to how a female goes through postnatal depression, but some of the signs are still the same. So things like trouble connecting. So trouble connecting with me and my son. I love him more than anything else on the face of the earth. but actually being able to connect and bond with them, there was a massive barrier that was standing in the way. And so we just didn't connect. Males who get postnatal depression are also very, very likely to kind of let their world crumble around them. More commonly than not, males are kind of almost hardwired as a father to be the provider.
Right.
It's kind of what is our natural instincts. You no longer want to be the provider.
And you'll do whatever it takes in order.
Whatever it takes to not be that.
If you had a job, then you would sleep late or
do everything you can to make sure that that job didn't pan out. So that is actually what happened with me as well, is I did go get a job, and everything within that job, I was employed at quite a high role, as employed as an assistant manager, and I did everything that you shouldn't do as a manager. I would let crew run the shifts. I would turn up late. I would leave early.
And all of this was subconsciously? It wasn't necessarily...
I was not consciously trying to do it.
Right.
Because I'm naturally a workaholic. I throw myself completely normally in the deep end. Mm-hmm. So to be kind of almost taking active steps to try and lose my job was the polar opposite of what I'd normally do. I'd be like, how can I pick up more hours? How can I work more? Whereas here I was trying to work as little as possible while still making big money. Mm-hmm. Because what I was doing as well is I was kind of self-medicating with alcohol. So my pay packet every week, I would pay my rent, then I would go out and I would buy 3 super large pizzas. That was my diet for the week. The rest of my money would be spent on cigarettes and alcohol. And I'm not talking like a couple of beer. I'm talking I would go buy 7, 8, 9, 10 liters of straight spirits. That was my fluid for the week. Wow. I became a party animal. Okay. I was doing everything I could to constantly surround myself with people so that I didn't have to think. That was the life that I was living. Extremely unhealthy lifestyle, which was the opposite of what I am naturally.
Right.
I was turning up to work still heavily under the influence. I wouldn't say I was actually drunk, but I was definitely still under the influence.
Now, we've had a number of conversations, folks, so it's like we could talk for years. We could probably do this show for the rest of my life, and we'll just like compare daily experiences, and maybe we'll do that. But okay, I know that, through our conversations, one of my questions was, did you not deal with depression, or did you not deal with something that was before your baby was then born at the time? And you had told me what?
So my first kind of, mental health, episode would have been that I recognized was when I was 11 years old. And due to what I would call situational stuff, I had gone through just a very recent forced breakup. I was being forced by my family to move away from everybody and everything I knew. The home life wasn't crap, but it wasn't great. There was always that grass is always greener mentality. So as a way to mean that I didn't have to move, I made an attempt to take my own life. That was interrupted by a really dear friend of mine. They literally just happened to turn up, even though I'd messaged them earlier that day saying, don't come round. I can't bear to see anybody today. Well, they ignored that and came round anyway. And then it was about 3 years later, when I was about 14, I was going through a time where I felt really isolated. I'm naturally a really outgoing person. I like to be around people. I like to talk. I like to interact. And then I felt like I had nobody. So I felt really isolated. I didn't think I could find a way to connect with people. I'd, not long moved to this new town. I hadn't really made any solid friendships yet. There was a couple of people I hung out with, but I was getting bullied quite dramatically, being the new kid at school. And as a means, at the time of kind of trying to get some attention where people would feel sorry for me or would want to care about me, I made an attempt on my life, which was actually it was a scream for help. It was, I need help. Somebody help me. There's something going on. I don't know what it is, but this isn't who I am. The same person that had interrupted the first attempt happened to be in town and was going to show up as a, hey, surprise, I'm here to visit. And they showed up at that moment as well. And that was like, okay, something's going on here. Obviously,
you have a guardian angel. Yeah.
Something's going on. Fast forward a year later, and I was still facing the same sort of problems, but this time it wasn't necessarily that I was almost feeling forced to be isolated. I was trying to isolate myself. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see anybody. All everybody does around me is hate me. All I do is cause pain on everybody. My family was really upset because of the previous attempt the year before. They were still struggling with dealing with that. I felt everything around me just didn't work. And if I removed myself from it, it would sort it.
Right.
So I ended up going down to one of the local parks late in the evening when no one was there, climbing up the tree. And I remember standing in the tree and seeing this car drive past. And then they hit the brakes. And where I was in the tree, you wouldn't have been able to really see me from the street.
Okay.
But as they drove past, you heard the brakes screech on the car. And this person comes running out of the car and just yells, "Don't do it," as they're running up to this tree. And I don't know how they spotted me. But lo and behold, it was that same person again. 3 times in a row, this person shows up.
Wow.
And at that point, I did go to the doctor, and the doctor's like, well, we're going to say it's depression, but there's something potentially else going on here. We want to kind of catch up with you regularly. So I was regularly catching up with my doctor. They put me on some really basic, what I'd call basic antidepressants, but they kind of did help, to be fair. But then I guess the next real big struggle for me, for me, I kind of decided I forced myself to try and turn my life around.
Okay. So the same person, you had the same person that was there for you. You obviously had a guardian angel that was looking out for you. Now, something you had mentioned, and like I said, folks, we're like brothers. We're like twins almost in a lot of ways, because I had a situation, my biological father left my family at a very young age. I was very fortunate to have my father, who I call my father, who raised me. He adopted me, okay, and he gave me his name. I was extremely fortunate for that. Still, I dealt with abandonment issues. I dealt with situations to where it was like I wasn't enough. I didn't feel like I was enough. I wasn't enough for my biological father to stay around. I wasn't enough in order for my parents to love me. I wasn't enough for friends to be around me. I was creating these invisible walls that nobody could see except for me. And so I was dealing with what's known as clinical depression. Okay, which is different. For those who are listening today, I'm telling you now, there's a total disservice when it comes to the AMA, where they're sitting there and they're calling depression and depression. There's a difference between clinical depression and situational depression, because everybody in the world has had situational depression. That's just the bottom line. And so when you're sitting there and you're dealing with clinical depression, you often get the stigma. Right? We're talking about killingthestigma.com. You often are talking about stigma in regards to depression, and it's like, you got to get over it. Everybody has depression. You got to find a way over it. Okay, I could tell you this, that clinical depression, there are 9 points that you have to go through in regards to get to clinical depression or to be diagnosed with clinical depression. It is not something that is just, it's a situation and they feel sad or even deeply saddened. It's something as to where there's a dread. There's something as to where there's a loss. Like what Robert was talking about is connection. You do not have that connection. I often talk about that in speeches that I do at clinics and different organizations and hospitals, that I did not have a connection. And I often don't have that connection. It's very, very strange. It's like you just are not connected to something that's around you. That's why it is that I went into my world, which was that thrill seeking, right? As to where, hell, I broke my arm 4 times. I broke my left arm 3 times, my right arm once, because I was little Evel Knievel. I was trying to do everything that you could imagine just to get a thrill and to just, feel alive, because I didn't feel alive on the inside. So is that something that you relate to? Is this what we're talking about? Or were you really in a situational depression?
With what you're describing, it exactly like that. I was kind of a thrill seeker as well.
Okay.
Anything I could do that would get that adrenaline going.
Right.
The way I referred to it was an adrenaline junkie. Mm-hmm. Anything that would get the adrenaline going, I would do it. And one of the big things that I did for that was sports.
Yep.
I was constantly doing sports, because when I'm out there running on the track, when I'm in a cross country, when I'm out doing the shot put or the high jump or out on the football field, you got that adrenaline going, because I'm naturally very competitive. So the adrenaline gets going and it's like, you've got to win, you've got to go. So I was doing everything I could to get that kind of that buzz or that high from the adrenaline. And sometimes, yeah, that meant taking a lot of risks and doing some really crazy, silly stuff. I mean, I've done skydiving, I've done bungee jumping. One of the things I haven't done yet is swim with sharks that I still want to do.
I want to do it, yeah.
Yeah, but there's lots of kind of crazy stuff that people would look at you, or you hear other people go, I went to go skydiving and I was so scared I didn't want to do it. And I remember at the time that I was pumped.
Mm-hmm.
I was really like, let's take this plane higher and go even higher and do this.
Right.
Looking back on it, was that smart thinking? Probably not.
It's definitely not healthy, right? It's not necessarily the healthiest thing that's going on. Yeah, I mean, I've skydived. I enjoy skydiving. And matter of fact, here's the thing. I'll tell you a quick story. The first time that I went skydiving, we pulled into the parking lot and I looked over to the left and I went over to my friend and I said, is it normal that there's every fire truck, every police car, every red, white, and blue light that's over there in that field? Are they doing some sort of exercise of some sort?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something, folks. The first time that I went skydiving, I was supposed to go 2 days before, but the instructor who was going to be teaching us, he ended up corkscrewing himself into the ground. He ended up needing medical attention. The helicopter came in and everything from Albany Med here. And, you know, he ended up breaking both legs. He ended up breaking his back. You know, I mean, it was like really terrible. Yet I came back 2 days later to say, okay, what do we do here? So, right? so let's get on up there. So
I know how it can go wrong now. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's pretty much, it's like, well, you know, law of averages, I'm all right. But this is something you would need to say, okay, well, you need to take a step back. You need to understand this is a real deal. This is something serious. I never did that. I actually was kind of sarcastic, to be quite honest with you, because I was like, okay, does this mean that we have a new instructor, or does this mean that we're, you know, or whatever? And they kind of looked at me like I had 3 different heads, because they're like, yeah, we're not going to jump today. And I wasn't being insensitive. I was just being non-connected. I wasn't connected to what was going on. I was more connected with, okay, here's something that can get my heart going again. Here's something that can get me rolling again. Here's something that can give me a memory to last for a while, you know, to keep me going for that particular day or for that particular week, whatever. That's what it is that I would do. And that's something that it sounds like you did too.
Yep. Dead on.
Yeah, right?
Exactly.
Now, you had mentioned also bullying. You may not know this, but the very first show we did with the Arisen Strength Motivational podcast was about bullying. And I have fully admitted the fact that I was a bully myself. I was a bully to one particular individual. That person is now over 300 pounds. He's amazing. He's a captain, I believe, on a volunteer fire department. And he could kick my ass like you would not believe. It's something that I'm not altogether proud of. The way that I bullied him probably was not like what it is that you probably were talking about or going to talk about, but I still am not proud of it. And so I know both sides too, because I also was somebody who kept on falling through the crack. I was always in the middle. I was always trying to be that people pleaser, right? So if somebody was weak, then I made them strong. If somebody was too strong, I would try to make them a little bit weaker so as to be able to even out everything, right?
Balance the tables.
Exactly. It's all about a balance. I talk about that to this day, you know, just in a different way. But you know, but the thing is that I'm very passionate about bullying, because bullying has now taken it to a whole other level. I mean, and we're not just talking about people calling each other names. We're talking about people who are denigrating people. We're talking about people who are not giving a damn whether or not that people have a breath in their lungs, not giving a damn whether or not they are being affected for the rest of their lives, depending on what the situation is. Cyberbullying. We've got adults who are sitting there bullying kids. See, I can go a long way on this one. Yes. I'm not happy with
I can sit here and nod along with all of this because, totally relate.
It's definitely not cool. So, all right. So your bullying situation.
Most of it was from my peers. Okay. But the way it kind of started was in that same move, that I mentioned when I was 11 years old. Mm-hmm. We moved halfway across the country. Now, New Zealand is a small country, yes, but moving halfway across is still a big move. And we are 2 separate islands. So I was also moving from one island to the other island. When I started at this new school, I was like, cool, fresh start, you know, brand new place, get to make some new friends, went in really energized, ready to do this. Literally first week of the term, and they're like, cool, we've got the cross country. And I was like, great, I'm really good at sports. I'm really good, I'm going to do well at this. People are going to be really impressed. I'm going to get lots of friends from this. So of course I pushed myself really, really hard, and I won. And I was like waiting for like this celebration, like, yay, hey, the new guy's fast too, like friends, yay. Polar opposite thing happened. What I didn't realize is because I was coming in at the end of my primary school years, of course, everybody else already had their clique of friends.
Okay.
And there was already this clique of kind of the sporty teams, the sporty guys, and they knew who was good at what and where everybody fit. And suddenly there's this new guy who's really sporty thrown in the mix that they don't know. Basically, it was, we need to shut him down, and we need to shut him down now. So I instantly became this massive target because I was doing better than them. Whereas I had, of course, pushed myself because I wanted to be with them. And kind of what you're saying about the being a bully, not being a bully, that balance, what ended up happening is because that same group, which was kind of the popular crowd, I kind of identified who the other kids were that they picked on. And I kind of became their friend.
Right.
And I would stand up to the bullies for these guys, because it was like, you guys know I'm sporty, so you're not going to actually physically fight me. Right. Because you don't know where things are going to go. You're just going to sit here and verbally attack and attack and attack. And any chance you get, you're going to attack these other guys because you know it's going to annoy me. That's kind of what happened. And I ended up kind of becoming the protector of the bullied by also kind of bullying the bullies back so that they would see me as more of a target. That backfired when I got to high school. Guys that had been getting bullied, that I'd been sticking up for, they weren't there anymore. They went to different schools. Okay. The same group, well, a big chunk of that same group of kind of bullies followed me. Well, ended up at the same school as me. And so now here I am by myself, no friends again. And that same group of bullies, only this time, that same group had made some new friends who were bigger, stronger, and able to, not have that fear of going, yeah, we'll pummel him into the ground. He's nothing. And so regular beatings became kind of a regular thing. And I remember one particular instance of it. And I would have been 13, 14 years old at the time. I won't name the guy, but I'd come out of class and he kind of grabbed me and kind of held me up against the brick side of the building. And I remember 3 teachers in that time while he was holding me up against the side of the building, 3 teachers walking past where we were and just did nothing because this guy was one of the popular kids at the school. That's the reason I think that it happened that way, that they turned a blind eye because he's a popular kid. They don't want to deal with his family because his family's, part of the school and all of that. This guy's a new kid that we don't really know, so don't worry about him. Because I think they felt empowered by that, those beatings became daily. They would take my lunch pretty much every day. It was also about this time that was about the birth of things like Bebo. If we want to go way back into my past of social media.
Whoa, okay, go ahead.
And that's kind of where the cybersness started, because of course you could customize your profiles and there was all of that, but all these guys, well, guys and girls, would attack the crap out of me on that. So even when I got home and I was like, I never told my parents I was being bullied, because that's still that mentality of I don't want to burden them any more than I already have. Right. It's still there kind of playing in my head. So I didn't tell them about it, because any other time I told them about being bullied, they'd take me down to the principal's office with them and you'd sit there and then you'd get a bigger beating or you get more crap from that crowd because you've now told on them. So to avoid that, you just don't tell, which I'm going to point out now is the wrong thing to do. Make sure you keep telling somebody until something happens. But now it's come to the point that when I go home, the first thing I want to do is go on there and talk to the couple of friends I had made, mostly overseas too, to be fair, because that was the power of, social media and the internet, kind of the baby phase of social media at that stage, being able to talk to anybody in the world. And it was really cool. But of course, the moment I log on, there's all this negativity being thrown at me again and again and again. And I just couldn't escape it. And it got to the point that I think I had like 3 or 4 profiles that were under completely different names, no photos, no link to me at all, just so I could actually get some peace. That's why cyberbullying is so, I think, scarily powerful, is because it's really hard to escape it. Bullying is definitely one of my big passions too. So
we're here talking to my good friend. His name is Robert Reed of killingthestigma.com, and we'll be right back. And we are back here on Arisen Strength and Motivational Podcast. I'm here with my good friend Robert Reed of killingthestigma.com, which is all about suicide awareness and prevention. And we've been talking about some of the challenges that Robert has gone through. They're very similar to some of the things that I personally have gone through and a number of people have gone through. So I know that there was a point in time that there was a transition, right? There was a transition when I realized what I was meant to do as opposed to what I was merely existing to do. And Robert knows that I do a weekday morning show called Motivated Strength, which is all about that, is to get people to do what they're meant to do as opposed to what they're merely existing to do. I can tell you, Robert has found what it is that he is meant to do. What is that?
Definitely working around the suicide prevention and awareness. Also just speaking out about using my personal experiences I've been through. For much of my life, I saw it as basically a living hell, to now realizing that I went through all of that to put me where I am now and being able to use those experiences to help others and to, as the website itself says, break down and kill those stigmas. Because when you're in those situations, you often feel like it's just you.
Right.
That you're the only one going through it. No one understands how you feel. But what we're trying to get people to realize is these experiences are actually relatively normal and more people go through them than what you realize.
Well, you had mentioned the fact about how, 3 teachers had walked their way right on by as you were being bullied. So there's a lot of reason, there's a lot of validity for what it is that people have some concern. They're in this world by themselves. They're in it to lose it or win it on their own. And if you end up feeling like you're losing it, and especially when you're in what I call that avalanche, right, as to where we talk about negativity and for whatever reason, the way, and I'm not saying it's, I know some people kind of roll their eyes when it's law of attraction, right? But it honestly, it is true. There is something about that. When you get into a role with things, if you're in a negative role, it feels like an avalanche. If you're into a positive role, man, I got to tell you, it feels awesome. And you start all of a sudden seeing things kind of divide out of your way. I know that's what happened to me when I decided to become a health advocate, especially as a mental health advocate, helping people with their mental mindset to get a little bit better. You've had some situations that have kind of led you to decide to do this, to be that advocate, to talk about mental health, to talk about suicide prevention. What are some things that had kind of led you there? I know that there were some really detailed reasons why it is that I did what I did. How about you?
So for me, there's a series of things and they're quite, I guess, scattered through my life. The first obviously being the amount of bullying and stuff that I faced. I wanted to be able to stand up for others that were feeling and experiencing that. Mm-hmm. The second one was I mentioned in the earlier part about how this one person had kept showing up.
The guardian angel. Right.
Yeah, at just the right time. Fast forward a few years. Now, we hadn't been in touch. Well, we had been, but only on and off. Her parents had a real issue with me, and I think part of that was because they're like, that guy's crazy. Stay away from him.
Right.
And then it got to the point that me and her were on phone calls almost every night when she was on her way home from work. And this one particular night, she messaged me beforehand and said, hey, not going to be able to call tonight. I'm too tired. I'll give you a call tomorrow morning. And I was like, cool, lads. Didn't think too much of it. It was a wee bit off, but I was like, whatever, put it back in my mind. Mm-hmm. I got woken up at, funnily enough, we were just talking about this kind of off just before. I got woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning with a sister calling me. I guess I'll give a little bit of backstory about the sisters first. One off, they were twin sisters, and they were those typical twin sisters. They were like tight. And the way that, because the guardian angel girl, her and I dated for a wee while. And the way it happened, though, is I actually started dating the other sister.
Okay.
And everyone was a wee bit thrown off and was like, hang on, but you guys, what? And that lasted about a week. And I remember this moment really vividly. We were sitting up in the girls' bedroom. I was around at their house, and we were sitting up there playing Crash Bandicoot on the original PlayStation. In came walking the sister that I was dating at the time, and she goes, Rob, we are done. Would you hurry up and ask my sister out already? I turned around because we were in the middle of playing the game, and I just turned and I was like, well, do you want to? She's like, okay. I was like, cool. And we went back to gaming. Turn up at school the next week and everyone's, huh?
Now you're all confused. Now it's like, what's going on? Okay.
But yeah, so down the track, so I get woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning from the sister that I hadn't really dated, ringing me going, hey, I need to let you know she's been in a really serious car accident. She's on life support. We're not sure what's going to happen. And I was like, okay, what do we do? And she's like, there's nothing else we can do right now. I'll keep you in the loop as much as I can. I get another call later that morning from her sister going, hey, I've got some possibly bad news for you. If she makes it through this, she will not be able to walk again. She probably will be extremely immobile. And the big thing that her and I bonded over was the fact that we were both athletes. We were both really into athletics. So I knew that that in itself was going to be a struggle for her to kind of get her head around. And she said, worst case scenario, she's going to be a complete vegetable or she's not going to survive. And I was like, okay, when are we likely to know anything?
Right.
And she's like, I'll keep you updated as best as we can. I get a call, I think it was the next day. So I remember the date exactly. It was September 17th, 2005. And I get this phone call and she says, we've just been told they can't keep her on the life support any longer. We're going to take her off it and we don't know what's going to happen. But they want me to make the call, not me, meaning her.
Right.
They wanted the sister to make the call as to when they turn the life support off. And she's like, I can't do it. What do I do? And I said, well, at the end of the day, she's a fighter. So if she wants to fight this, she will. If she knows that she can't continue, she'll let herself go. She lasted 28 minutes off life support. Within about 2 months following that, her sister moved back to living in the same city as me because they'd been living in a completely different city. Sister moved back to living in the same city as me, ended up living around the corner. We were spending all our time together. A lot of people thought we were a thing. And of course, we were both like, nope, too weird. Especially with them being identical twin sisters. Yeah, just a smidge too weird. Got to the 1 year anniversary of her sister's death and we literally spent pretty much the entire day together. We went out and just did things that we knew she would have enjoyed doing because the way we saw it is that she was still with us. I went home to have a shower and said, hey, I'll come back round in about an hour's time. We'll go get some dinner. So I went home and had my shower. As I came out of the shower, I had a text message that said, I need you to come around now. So I quickly, throw the clothes on, rush around. And when I get there, all I see over the floor, she's sitting on the floor and all I can see over the floor is just pill bottles and pill sheets scattered. And within about 2 minutes of me arriving, she passed away from a suicidal overdose. So that for me was kind of the first real experience being on the other side of that. And I kind of made a promise to myself at that point that I would never, ever attempt again because the two people that potentially would be there to save me and pull me through it weren't going to be there anymore. So that was 2006 is when the suicidal overdose happened. My next suicide attempt isn't until late in 2013. Now, I still kind of had some challenges in that time, but they were nowhere near as severe. And I kind of was able to pull through them going, nope, I can do this. I've got to pull through. And I've always felt that they sit with me and follow me, as you referred to before, those guardian angels, which is why I was kind of smirking when you said it the first time. I was like, huh. But through that experience, what kind of came out of that is once they diagnosed me with the postnatal depression, basically gave me an antidepressant there at the hospital. And they gave me a really mild sedative and said, on your way. They'd sat with me for 45 minutes on your way. And I was really lucky that I had a really, really good supportive friend there that literally did not let me out of his sight for the next 3 days. And we're talking, if I was showering, he was in the bathroom with me. If I went to the toilet, the door was open and he would be standing outside it. I was not out of his sight for 3 days solid. And his reasoning for that was I had to tell my parents what had happened. Okay. And because of my earlier episodes, that was the one thing I really dreaded because I didn't want to put more crap on them with what I'd already done many years earlier.
Right.
Ended up telling them, and my parents were really, really supportive. They kind of flipped the 180 from in my youth where it was like, you'll get over it, to hang on, he's now an adult. This isn't just an adolescent thing anymore. Like, this is serious.
Yeah. You didn't grow out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so they assist me in getting some proper help and getting on medication for a while and really supporting me and kind of trying to rebuild my life. But the one thing I really noticed is the one time I really needed our medical profession to step up and be there and actually take me seriously and help, they weren't there. And I was like, it's no wonder that suicide is such a problem in our country. For those that may be listening and not know, New Zealand has the highest rate of youth suicide in the developed world. We have one of the highest rates of suicide in general in the developed world. With some of the highest rates of poverty and income disparity in the developed world. A lot of people see New Zealand as this really beautiful, amazing country, and we are, don't get me wrong, but there's a really ugly side to what's going on here as well. Still say, come visit, we are a beautiful country, especially when it comes to mental health in this country. It's been an area we've really lacked on. We've always had that real kind of harden up, she'll be right, get over it attitude, and it's only been kind of in the last maybe 2 years that that's starting to change. I was like, this needs to change. So I'm going to do something to make this change because I don't want anyone else to be where I was basically alone. I want to raise some awareness about this and get people talking because this isn't being talked about. So I started the page that is now the Suicide Awareness Prevention page, or killingthestigma.com. Set up the page with the idea of just creating an event. That was the original intent, is I wanted to run an event that raised awareness around what was going on. But what did happen is, just purely because of the name of the page, people started messaging in and going, hey, I'm going through a rough patch. Is there someone here I can talk to? And I was like, well, I'm not a medical professional or anything, but if you need someone to talk to, I'm happy to chat with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of just naturally developed and grew from there, where we started getting more and more people messaging in, got to the point that I personally couldn't handle it all on my own anymore in regards to responding to all the messages, because there's people from all around the world messaging, 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning my time, and I'm wanting to stay up all night because I don't want these people to be alone.
Right.
Because I know how that felt. It was like, I don't want to drop these people. So I was staying up all hours of the night, messaging these people and making sure that they were okay. Ended up getting some more people to come on board and help. And we kind of grew it into what it is now. We really are a support page that comes purely from lived experience. We're still not professionals. We've all been through some crap, and we want to use what we've been through now to help others to not feel so alone and be able to help connect them with services and resources that can actually help. And that's one area that I guess we've really prided ourselves on, is the fact that the services we are connecting people with aren't just any services, where they are services that we know for a fact work, because it's easy to connect somebody with any Joe Blog service. But then if that service is not going to help them, or it's just going to drop them or things like that, like what's happened to myself and many of the members of the team, it's not actually helping them, and it's potentially actually going to do more damage. So I guess my wake up moment was actually at one of my lowest points, when I was at my lowest and going, this isn't right. Like the wake up of realizing I've been put through all this hell all my life for this. And as you say, finding that purpose and that realization has only actually happened in the last 2 years, even though the page has been running for like 4.5 years. It's only been the last 2 years that I've gone, this is my niche. This is why I'm here. This is my purpose. And I've went from kind of almost responding because I felt I had to, because I didn't want people to be where I was, to now responding because I genuinely, one, I know what that's like, but it's also because I believe that's why I'm here, is to help these people. Making connections internationally with people like yourself and some of the others that we connect with, it really shows that. And it shows, for me, you and I have compared stories of our suicidality, and yours ended with pizza, mine started with pizza. But something that simple, something that small can build that connection.
Yeah.
And it's like that now, to me, is like, we were joking before we had this interview tonight about, it's all right, we'll always have pizza.
Yeah.
Simple things like that. And for me, that actually does go towards breaking down those stigmas, but it's also using our experiences on what we've been through to do it.
I think that's on your Facebook. You have initials that go by qualified by lived experiences.
Yep.
And, and I think that's number one, it's very impressive. Number two, it's something that people are looking for now. People aren't necessarily looking for those who are quote unquote professionally unqualified. They're not looking for social workers. They're not looking for psychiatrists. They kind of feel like they're out of touch. And I got to be honest with you, I've lived in 16 states in this country. Okay. And so with that being the case, I've seen a lot of different approaches when it comes to mental health, when it comes to suicidality, when it comes to support in general. Arisen Strength, I mean, what you're doing here and what your story, and thanks so much for sharing your story. There are always high points and low points, right? And that just is the case. The thing is how we react to those high points and low points. And sometimes that's controlled by our diagnosis or our mental health or our physical health. When you're talking about suicide prevention, I can tell you this, somebody who deals with chronic nerve pain, somebody who deals with chronic pain, chronic illness, it leads them to suicidality out of desperation, because that's what I call it. I call it mental desperation. We get to a point where we are at our wit's end. We are either going to lash out at someone else or we're going to lash out at ourselves. And the majority of people, when I say the majority of people who deal with mental health, and that includes those who deal with chronic pain, chronic illness, they will lash out at themselves. And when I say the majority, I'm talking like 98% will lash out at themselves.
Yep.
So that is something very important to realize. Arisen Strength, like I mentioned, we have our pillars and our foundations. The pillars support. We support unconditionally because it does not matter whether anybody else believes you or not. We do. We know that if you think that you are going through what it is that you're going through, then we need to support you in order to be able to get you on the right path. Then we empower you. We empower you to be more than the challenges that you face. And then, of course, after all that damn work, and you have just proven it, and so have so many people who have been on the show, it's a lot of damn work to get where it is that you are right now. And it's not to say that it's perfect, right? It's to say that it's a little bit better. It's a different way, right? It's a better in a different way. And you deserve to be able to celebrate. And how we celebrate, right, is our victories.
Pizza?
What it is. Yeah, pizza's good, right? Right? Pizza's not a bad way of celebrating. My pizza thing is a totally, talk about mental desperation. But when you were going through what it is that you were going through and everything like that, you went through levels, right? You went through levels and you came to the realization, it's like, no, things are not being done in a way that they need to be done. Things are not being looked at from being qualified by lived experiences. Things are not being done by bullying and people looking the other way. And I'm a big one about this. And anybody who has worked for me over the years knows this. Don't come to me with a problem and complain about it. Come to me with a solution to that problem and let's work it out. Let's rock and roll. Let's get forward. Let's move, right? And you know what I always say on Motivated Strength is like, look, you have the choice. You can trip up or you can step up. And you are stepping up. You're stepping up into what it is that is the difference in this world that can make a difference to a lot of people. It can make a difference to the people who are just like us, who go through the challenges and the struggles that we go through. It can be the difference for those who are looking from the outside in, who may not understand it right now, but then all of a sudden they find out that it happens in their world. It happens in their world. It happens in a friend's world, happens in their spouse's world, happens into their child's world. Whatever it is that is, that's a possibility. So they see the example. Then you also have those who don't believe, those who are looking the other way, who don't want to know. But if we are strong enough and if we keep on bringing the message on and on and on again, they cannot ignore it. They have to hear it. And whether or not that they acknowledge it or not, they know that's the difference. And with our foundations, you'll understand this. You have to, right, take ownership of your own recovery. Nobody else is going to do it for you, even if they love you with everything.
They can be there and support you through it,
right?
But it's on you.
Exactly.
One of my favorite sayings, and we use this quite regularly within our admin team, is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink.
Absolutely.
I'm happy, and I've done this in the past with people, I'm happy to go along with them to their counseling sessions, to their psychologists, to their doctors with them, but I'm sitting in the waiting room. They need to go in and deal with the doctor and stuff themselves. Right. And that's taking the ownership over going, I need to acknowledge this. Everybody else has already told me, but I need to own it. Yeah. Own what you've been through and own the experiences, because until you do that, they'll continue to own you. Yeah, when you were saying about the lived experience, I think what people are starting to realize, the people that have been through this are the ones that get it the best.
Yes.
And we did that. We kind of did an experiment on the suicide awareness page. For a long time, we were posting what I thought was the right stuff to be posting. Really positive, really uplifting stuff. You can get through this. There's light at the end of the tunnel, all the fluffy ducks and rainbows stuff. And, it was getting traction and it was getting a bit of response and stuff. But then beginning of 2015, I went through a kind of another dip. Mm-hmm. And when I went through that dip, I went to my own page to go start looking for stuff to kind of try to bring me back out of it and bring me through it. And I sat there shaking my head at it all going, you just don't get it.
Right.
You just don't understand what this is actually like. And that was another realization moment for me of going, whoa, hang on. If I'm not getting my own stuff that I'm posting, how is anybody else? How is this actually helping? So we started posting a mixture. We started posting stuff that somebody who is in that dark space, who is going through the crap at that moment in time, can see and that they can relate to. And what we instantly noticed, and we're talking within the first week that we started doing this, is the number of people that were messaging us flew up. Mm-hmm. The number of people that were liking the page absolutely skyrocketed. Biggest thing we said is that the common theme in the messages that we were getting from the people were the reason that they messaged was because it was nice to see someone who actually got it and wanted to help.
And that's transparency. What it is that I've totally believe why it is that we have our followers is because we're very transparent. Wayne and I are very transparent in what it is that we have done, what it is that we have been through, and what it is that we plan on doing. And so we have take ownership, right? You have to take ownership of your own recovery. Number two is the power of turning the thought. Now, this goes to where it is that you're talking about your situation is where they want to be acknowledged for what it is that they feel, right? That's true. But in order for them to move up to that next level, we need to have them understand that they can turn the power of thought. They can see how it is that it can make a difference for them. I always use the example, if you take a deck of cards, 52 cards is in a deck of cards. If you have the face showing only, it looks like there's only one card there. But yet, if you sit there and you fan out that deck of cards, you all of a sudden now see that there is much more than just one angle of looking at things. So, that is the power of turning the thought. That can lead you to the solution versus the problem.
I think with that, one of the things that I've come to realize, it relates to what I was just saying about we had been posting all this positive stuff and nobody was really getting it. The analogy I like to use is, imagine you've been asleep in bed for a couple of hours, you've woken up, you need to go to the toilet. Somehow in the darkness, you find your way there. You just know how to get there.
Right.
You get there, you turn the light on and it hurts. And you're just like, no, I could see better without it on, just turn it off, get it away. To me, that is somebody who is battling depression or going through a really dark moment in life, and you just blast them with light. It actually hurts and it scares them away. They don't want to go near that,
right?
Because you get comfortable in the darkness, you get used to it.
Right.
Whereas if you can slowly ease that light on, slowly turn that dimmer up, it's bringing them up to that next level to get them to be able to see, yeah, I'm comfortable in this darkness, but hey, actually, I could be up here.
Our last one is freedom of acceptance. Freedom of acceptance is huge because I'm telling you here, this comes from my addiction, right? My addiction world. I came to the realization that I can do just about anything that's healthy for me within reason outside of what it is that's participating in my addiction. And we talked about this. I dove out of a fully functioning airplane in order to be able to ritualize this, right?
Yep.
And what this does is it lets you know that you're more than the challenges that you face. The challenges that you have, the limitations that you have, the struggles that you have can be a smaller percentage of your life and not a consumption of your life. Mm-hmm. So between having ownership of your recovery, the power of turning the thought, and then the freedom of acceptance, this right here can make a difference. And I know it can because I've seen it work. We've worked with other people who are listeners within our show. My own co-host, Arisen Strength and Motivational Podcast, Wayne the Hack Hacker. He lost 300 pounds in less than 2 years. He changed his life totally. He changed his life from living in a boarding home with me at the time. He now is working on Wall Street in less than 3 years. So I know that it works. And so we just need to be able to bring it across and to have people see it. And that's what it is that you're trying to do with killingthestigma.com.
You're saying about the freedom of acceptance. For me, it's not quite as, dramatic as losing 300 kilo, 300 pounds in 2 years.
Right. That pretty damn.
Every time you tell me about that story, it blows my mind. But for me, that freedom of acceptance was, as I said, to be honest, it's been within the last year that's finally started to happen. For the first time, about this time last year, I properly spoke out about what I'd been through, properly, where I actually kind of went quite in depth and stuff rather than kind of just skimming over the facts.
Right.
And what happened the moment after I did that was kind of my whole perception changed. The whole way that I saw things completely changed. And it's because I'd finally accepted what I'd been through, but that didn't have to own me.
Right.
I could own that and I could actually build from that. Kind of like the 300 pound story, the killingthestigma.com, we had about 5,000 followers this time last year. We were steadily growing at, 20, 30 new followers a week. We were quite happy with that. Mm-hmm. But in the last year, so that was 3.5 years worth of work, got us to 5,000 followers. Go from this time last year, we were at 5,000 followers to where we are now. We're literally on the cusp of breaking 170,000 followers.
That's amazing.
And that shows you the difference that actually having that freedom of acceptance can make, because I finally accepted what I'd been through and what I'd experienced, and that it didn't own me. I could use that and actually go, you know what? Instead of you being able to use me as like your little pawn and, you know, decide to pop back up whenever you like. No, not anymore. I own that experience. I own what I've been through, and this is where I am now. And I'm going forward, not backwards. And that's exactly what we are saying about the 3 pillars. Those 3 pillars have happened over the period of the last probably 4.5, 5 years. But the moment we hit that last pillar, that freedom of actually accepting it, the movement and the work that we're doing just skyrocketed. And we didn't change a lot of what we did. It was just actually being able to accept what I've been through, and that whole mentality changed. It made things blow up in a good way.
Exactly. Speaking of blowing up in a good way, you've got some things that you've got coming along. We also want to know how it is that we can find you, how it is that we can support your efforts, and what it is that you have planned in the near future.
Start with the easy part of that. The easiest way to find us is obviously killingthestigma.com. The most simple, it will redirect you to our Facebook platform, which is where we do 90% of our work, is using hands down the largest social network in the world. If it ain't broke, why fix it? We will be having a website coming in the near future. We're just in the process of building that properly because we want to make sure that we're putting the right thing out there. But the cool thing that we've got coming up at the moment to kick off Suicide Awareness Month, which is September, we're running a global campaign called Let's Talk About Mental Health. And the idea is, and just to make sure people didn't miss the spelling there, it's Let's Chalk, as in CHALK, about mental health. And the idea is that we're encouraging people over that first weekend of September to get out in your local communities, get out in your schools, get out in the public, get out there with chalk and write or draw messages of hope and inspiration and uplifting stuff, not only for other people, but for yourself. To remind yourself kind of that there is positivity there. But then as other people come past, they're going to see these positive messages, they're going to see these positive drawings and feel uplifted within themselves. That way, we're helping not only ourselves, but we're helping everybody else, while also breaking down the stigmas around mental health and mental distress. So what we're encouraging people to do then, once they've done their nice big drawings or their nice big writings, take a picture, upload it to social media, literally Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever, upload it and use the hashtag Let's Talk About Mental Health. We are going to scour the internet for probably the month following and pull every image and every video that we find, and we're going to compile it all into one video with the intent basically producing that into a kind of a mini film that will spread some positivity, spread hope, but also spread a powerful message about breaking down the stigmas around mental health that will then obviously upload onto social media so people will be able to see the stuff that they did, they drew, and the effect that had on other people, because that's part of the other side of it. Is we're actually going to go talk to some people that aren't taking part in it and ask them what their thoughts are. How does seeing this make you feel? That way we're getting both sides of this. The idea is that, breaking down the stigmas while raising hope and inspiration across the board. And we've got the events that are happening all across the world. I know of Detroit, Florida. There's some in Melbourne in Australia, London in England, places in Canada. We've got at least 2, maybe 3 or 4 events happening here across New Zealand. So it's going to be happening all over the place. And that's the idea, is that because it is easy, and it is something very simple, very easy you can do to not only help yourself, but to help others.
And how long is the campaign? Is it the full month?
No, so we're running the campaign from the 31st of August through to the 3rd of September. So it is just that first weekend.
Okay.
Now, the reason we're doing the 31st and the 3rd as well is it's a Friday and a Monday. So we're encouraging schools to get involved and get out there as a school and do this, because being able to break down those stigmas in school and being able to talk about it in school is so important about getting the education around mental health, so that when people do go through this later on in life, or potentially at that time at school when it can be so detrimental, they know that it's okay to feel like this, but we can help you through it. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to reach out.
And I know that my good friend Brian Rankin is in Detroit, and he is planning on going on a motorcycle trip, right?
He's going cross-state. And every stop he does, whether it's a petrol station, whether it's the side of a highway, whatever, he's going to get that chalk out and get chalk. And awesome. Brian is an absolute legend and huge supporter of the Let's Talk About Mental Health.
He is an awesome dude. And again, another brother in so many different ways. So, all right. So
you two and your golf.
Including golf. Yes. Golf, cars, and football. Yes, indeed. Yep. I like motorcycles, but damn, they're too damn dangerous for me. I
See,
like speed.
I think that's still part of my inner adrenaline junkie is I do want a motorbike at some point.
Yeah.
But for now, I've got the little man, so it's going to have to be cars for now.
I'll stick with the car. It's like, because motorcycles, nope. I like speed too much. All right. So it's been wonderful to have you on the show. We will have you back, obviously, and for a number of different reasons. And I just so much appreciate your friendship. I appreciate you being a brother, in so many different ways. Like Brian, I mentioned, I'm serious when I say that, folks. I do not fool around. I've been to the bottom, just like what Robert was talked about. I've been through that. I crashed through that damn thing. And I got to tell you, I came to realize what was important to me. And what's important to me is to value my friendships, to value the people who support me, to value the people who follow me, along with my friends and my family. And, that's very important to me. And I know it is to Robert as well. So it has been wonderful to have you. Plan on having you back. Let's Talk. We're going to get rocking and rolling with Let's Talk Mental Health. That's what we're going to be bringing, across the country, here in the United States, across the world, in so many different ways, to be able to get people to realize that they're more than the challenges that they face. They are not just their diagnosis. They are meant to be more than that. They are meant to be more than what they may be merely existing to be. So, I
guess, recognizing that the struggles they're going through, there is a bigger reason that they're going through it.
Amen. We're proving that, huh? Yep. They may be telling the stories of their own, in a very short period of time, maybe even on this show. So do this for me, folks who are listening to the show. Use hashtag Let's, LETS, Chalk, CHALK, about mental health. It's real simple, but it makes a difference. All right.